So this video is very different from the type of content I produce both on World of Geekdom, Geekdom 101, as well as my podcast, the Geekdom 101 podcast, and of course the KLB. It's very real, and it's very... I do some real-life stuff with Speakdoms, but this is kind of a story that I had to kind of throw in my 2 cents here about it, and a lot of folks have been asking me to talk about it, and talked a little bit about it on Twitter, but I wanted to make a dedicated video to it and give my thoughts on the George Floyd situation. So if you've been living under a rock for the past, a couple of days, maybe 3, 4, 5 days, which I was told this by a friend just a few days ago, that like the night it happened, but I didn't really understand what was going on until the next day. This man, I'm not going to go into the story. I'm assuming that you already know what's going on. If you don't, just look it up. But long story short, this man, George Floyd, African-American gentleman, was murdered. Literally murdered. Okay, and that's not up for debate. This was a murder by a police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The officer had a history, supposedly, of several complaints against him. There's rumors that they may have found Ku Klux Klan paraphernalia or applications in his home. That I cannot confirm, but that's rumors. But one thing we do know is that this guy definitely had a history of complaints, and the video is very disturbing to watch because the video's out there, and it's very hard to watch because you're literally watching the life slipping out of George Floyd. This cop, this crooked, dirty, filthy cop, had his knee on the back of George Floyd's head, and the guy screaming, he can't breathe. He said, I can't breathe. Then he's screaming for his mother. And the guy's, it looked like from my vantage point watching the footage that he was digging his knee in deeper. Now, the guy was already, George Floyd was already what's the word I'm looking for? He was already restrained. There was no need to do this. When a cop puts you on the floor, he can sometimes put a knee to your back or things like that, gently, just to pin you down. But this cop, put a knee to the back of his neck and was pushing down, like crushing his larynx and his neck area. And turns out that George Floyd died. He was murdered by this cop. This was a murder. And it's really hard to prove to me, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a prosecuting attorney, not a judge. But it's going to be hard to prove to me with my own eyes that was not done intentionally. Did the cop try to kill the guy? That's the one that's up for debate, right? All I know is that when I saw the footage, the man is screaming for his life. There's 3 other cops around who do nothing. If I was one of the other cops, I would have immediately told the guy, yo, man, you got to get off this guy. Get off of him. You're going to cost us our jobs. They just stood there, didn't do anything. He's screaming that he can't breathe. He's literally screaming into the cop. It's very easy to hear. And the cop just keeps pushing down. Like he wanted to kill him. And I'm sorry, I don't really give a shit what other people think about what was going on as far as, well, maybe he didn't mean to. It looked like he meant to do it. Did he think he was going to die? Maybe not. But when somebody is screaming, I can't breathe, and you are a police officer in a position of power, right? And you are not letting that man breathe, it's a really bad look for you, bro. Really bad look. So this officer was named Derek Chauvin. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And he had his knee on the back of George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes. It was 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Just squishing him down into the pavement, into the concrete. A guy who had already been, about to be taken into custody. And why did he even get in trouble with the cops? What was the reason for this? Because he had a $20 counterfeit bill, supposedly. A $20 counterfeit bill. Think about that. $20. And after this happened, when this story started spreading, because nowadays with cameras everywhere and social media and the internet, the news gets out real fast. There are a lot of very angry people in the world right now. And rightfully so. People are very angry because these stories of these racist cops murdering innocent black people has been going on for decades and decades. I mean, I remember being a little kid hearing about the Rodney King thing. And just recently, a couple of years, I think 4 years ago, there was that one guy who got choked out in New York. I remember that was very disturbing footage. But now we're actually, because of the way the internet is, we're seeing the footage everywhere. I mean, you can't even hide the footage. It's everywhere. And people come to their own conclusions. And so, I guess some folks felt that the justice system was not fast enough for their liking. And there are people now who are protesting, which is fair. But there are some who are also rioting. And there's all kinds of crazy stories about undercover cops, like, instigating riots. And there's a lot of really strange stories going on right now. And I really don't know who to believe. And I'm being very transparent and very honest with you guys. I'm hearing CNN lies, which they have in the past. I'm hearing lots of different stories. Like I said, lots of different speculations about these riots. Are they really angry people, or are they being caused by groups who want to cause more problems? We have the National Guard out now in several cities in the middle of a pandemic. This is complete bonkers. This is the worst time for this to have happened. The reality is that crooked cops are a problem. But not every cop is crooked. And I do feel like some people are turning this into a battle against police officers. Not every police officer is crooked. In fact, the majority of them are genuinely good people. But there are bad apples that spoil the bunch. Like this Derek Chauvin guy. Because whether or not this was racism, whether it was a hate crime, what he did, he killed a man who did not need to die. He was not endangering anybody. George Floyd was not endangering anybody's life or livelihood. He wasn't a sexual deviant. He wasn't a assault and battery type dude. He had a $20 counterfeit bill. And this guy took his life. It's just the abuse of power that these cops have is just mind-blowing. And I feel like, if I'm being honest with you, if this would have happened with somebody else, not an officer, let's say it was just a racist white guy and a black dude, I feel like that would have been different. I think that the guy being a cop makes it worse, because now we have not elected officials, but now we have police officers who are supposed to be protecting the citizens, regardless of race, color, creed, or gender. And instead, this fucking guy is stepping on people's necks. And it looked like the way he was doing it, he was enjoying it. I mean, that's just my own eyes. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but it looked very, very malicious. It looked like it was done on purpose. And supposedly this guy killed somebody already in the past. This guy needs to get put away for life. He really does. I'm not a judge, I'm not a cop, I'm not a lawyer, but based on what he has done and the backlash to what's going on, people rioting in the streets and being very angry, based on what this man has done to affect the country. And it's not just here; it's apparently other countries are also doing what do you call it? Protesting. But the damage this man has done, because the reality is, had he not done that, none of this would have happened. Properties wouldn't have been damaged. Maybe it would have happened eventually, but not now. Because crooked cops are going to always be around at some point. Hopefully I'm wrong about that, but they've been around forever. And it's like, this guy, like I'm hearing, somebody told me that in Minneapolis or in Minnesota, whatever, they said that he might just get, for third degree murder, 25 years or 12 years. Are you kidding me? This man is a disgrace to the badge, dog. He needs to get put away for life. The only thing that bugs me is that, even though I understand people are angry, this whole rioting thing is going to have very bad consequences, because there's innocent people now who are being hurt. Cops are hurting innocent people. Innocent people are hurting themselves. This has become like Armageddon right now, yo. And I just can't believe it. Like, it's just, you hear about these things. I grew up listening to Public Enemy, the rap group, and watching movies about this type of stuff and hearing stories. But now with the media putting it out there, with the video footage and seeing, it's all over social media, clips of riots in different cities all over the country. It's like, it's real, bro. Like, it hits you like in a different level. People are very angry because they feel like enough is enough. And I'll be honest with you, because this is a police officer, I feel like the penalties for this should be tenfold. It should be worse. Whatever he's sentenced with should be worse than a regular citizen, because he has authority and he is literally abusing his power. And the fact that he has a history of this, like, it does piss me off. It really, really does. I've got friends all over the country, all over the world, really, but I have a lot of friends all over the country, including where I live in Florida, who have been telling me stories about this. They've been telling me stories about malls that I used to frequent when I was younger getting torn up. There's stories of, like, riots where there's actually, like I heard a story yesterday about how apparently there's an EMT that had rocks thrown at him from rioters. Like, I don't like that. Like, I don't like that. That's not the right thing to do. It's just not the right thing to do. Rioting like that and just smashing property and beating up homeless people, which I've seen footage of, that is not going to get the message across. Heavy protesting is the right way to do it, peaceful protesting. I know some people are going to say not to do that it's too late for that, but I think by now, today, June 1st, I think the message is clear. You know what I mean? I think the message is not clear of what needs to happen. And this Derek Chauvin needs to go the fuck down. He needs to go down. If I told you how I felt about this as far as what I think his punishment should be, you're going to look at me like I'm crazy because no government would ever allow it. But there are such things that are worse than the death penalty, and I feel like this guy deserves it. Just for all the collateral damage he's done. And I just want to make this video to say, stay safe out there, please, folks. Please stay safe. Don't do anything crazy. If you have to stay indoors, we're already staying indoors because of the COVID. But if you have to stay indoors, do it. Be careful when you go out shopping and things like that. Obviously, most of you guys already know this. But I do hope that this is a wake-up call to our elected officials that maybe we need to enforce a little bit deeper background checks on some of these officers. Maybe we need to enforce harsher laws to those who abuse their power. Because I'm telling you right now, if this Derek Chauvin gets off, if he is found innocent of third-degree murder, which, by the way, the reason why it's third degree, just to clarify, is because even though I feel like that was first degree, because even though it was not premeditated beforehand, he had his knee on his back for 9 minutes, and to me that still counts as premeditation. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's say second degree, just to be safe. Third degree murder is much easier to get him with. It's easier to sentence him and easier to convict him of third degree murder than first degree murder. But there's also supposedly a history between Mr. Floyd and Mr. Chauvin. If they can put that in the courtroom and somehow prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this guy wanted to kill him at some point or another, then it will be first degree murder. But they will be adding more charges, I'm sure. But the point I'm trying to make is if he gets off, oh my God, this country's going to hell in a handbasket. But I don't think it's going to happen. It can't happen. This is a wake-up call now that we need to really... Again, this 2020 has been the year of wake-up calls. It's almost like a reset. It's like hitting the reset button on the world. Right? That's what this is. And I feel like we need to get closer to one another. I feel like at this point, racism, even though it's still out there, needs to be a thing of the past. Obviously, it's not going to happen right away, but I think over time, as more time goes on, I think it is going to be less and less prevalent, even though it's still out there. It's still out there. I think it will be less and less prevalent over time as we kind of evolve as a species, but it's just so stupid and senseless, and I don't know. I have another video planned probably about racism I'm going to get into, because I already did a video on racism when I was racially profiled when I was younger. Did that video. It was an old speakdom from last year. So I've dealt with it myself. And that's just one story. There's other stories too. It's just, I hope things get better. So anyways, take care of yourself, folks, and we'll talk soon.